Welcome back. In today's episode, we speak with Allyson Ward. She's the author of Please Don't Come Home Except for a Visit. She teaches us how to raise independent, successful young adults. If you have kids or are thinking about having kids and one day would like to see them go away to college and not come home except for holidays or a visit, stay tuned to the interview with Allyson Ward.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Allyson Ward, the Parent Profit Protector, helps you keep more money in your pocket while guiding you to create independent young adults. Combining your passion for raising happy and healthy children with the grit formula for creating confident teens, Allyson guides her coaching clients and readers to keep more money in your pocket while allowing your teens to stand on their own. She's an expert in this area and the best-selling author of Please Don't Come Home Except for a Visit, a field guide to creating independent young adults. Allyson, thank you so much for joining us today. I know the audience is going to get so much out of today's episode. And it's funny, I know you have a new book that just came out, Please Don't Come Home. At first, I thought it was a book for ex-husbands or something.
That'll be my next book, Thor.
I know, you could work, this could be like the chicken soup, just keep doing different things.
Exactly. Now, this one is Please Don't Come Home Except for a Visit.
Excellent. And it's to create young adults. Now, I have two kids, 18 and 22. Tell us a little bit about the book and what you learned.
Yeah, well, the book has been an interesting process. The intent of writing the book is that I saw so many people who were coming to me with questions about, how do I get my kid off my couch? They've graduated college, or I just don't think they're ready. They don't seem to be very independent. So, I took a lot of the learnings I had, experience with my own kids, experience with my coaching clients, and wrote a book so that people would really understand when your kid gets to be about a teenager, it's time for us to shift our role from that of supervisor to trusted advisor. And so I really come up with an acronym called GRIT, which is really, it stands for hard work. First of all, it's hard work. They've got to do hard work, and we've got to do hard work. And then GRIT stands for, you got to have a game plan. You got to make sure they're resourceful. I stands for investment, and T stands for transformation, which is really about communicating how you're now going to communicate in this new paradigm and how they're going to be able to communicate with the world. So it's really a how-to guide. We hear all this stuff about, helicopter parenting, and our kids are horrible and they're not going to succeed in life. And it's true that there's, helicopter parenting does exist. I don't like that term because people tend to throw it around to blame one another, and I don't like that as an idea. But there really are some truths to it, and there are some challenges. So this book is meant to give you the how-to. How do I help my kid to help themselves?
Interesting. I love the new term, the lawnmower parent.
Yes.
Where they just mow everything out of the way, the obstacles for their kids.
Absolutely. Not serving our kids.
Yeah, this really resonates with me because my 18-year-old moved in with me about a year and a half ago. And from the very beginning, I really wanted to give him the structure of learning to become a man. Mm-hmm. And I learned what he wanted. He wanted to be respected. He wanted to be understood. But I really started making him step up in ways that most people don't make their 17-year-old kids step up.
Right.
I made him get a job. Mm-hmm. If he wanted a phone, he had to pay for the phone.
Great.
And holding him accountable for his grades at school. And it was amazing. I mean, he balked. He balked big time. But slowly, he started acting like a young adult.
Right.
And
that's awesome. Kudos for you, because I will tell you.
Well, I messed it up.
Uh-oh, what'd you do?
Well, no. I when he was younger, I didn't step up in the ways that I needed to. Okay. I was more of the pleasing parent and letting my wife at the time kind of nurture him and take care of him, protect him. And I was the breadwinner, right? It's like, I'll take care of that, and then you take care of the house stuff. And that wasn't a good strategy. But I learned from my mistakes, I guess.
Okay, well, good for you. Because, the thing is that, and really, I do have to just give kudos to you because you're absolutely serving him at a much higher level now. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know about your upbringing, but certainly the upbringing of the kind of the time that we were growing up, all the stuff that you're requesting of him is no different with what was the standard back then. Things have really changed. And like I said, just didn't exist before. So what you're doing now is really going back to how our parents parented, by and large.
Yeah, I mean, when we stepped out of line, we got the belt. I wasn't abused. I'm not on, Springer talking about it.
Right.
It's like we knew what was expected, and if we didn't, we got the belt across the butt.
Right. And our parents set standards and then held us to it.
Yes.
I can remember being berated by my mother for getting a C in school. And there was no like, well, the teacher doesn't like me, or, there was no excuses. It was like, you know what? You figure out how to get that straightened out. And oh, by the way, you're not going out with your friends on Friday night.
And they stuck to it.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And I didn't until I figured out how to bring home a grade that, looked like an A or a B on it to present it to my mom. Because that just was not acceptable.
So give the parents out there some tactics, some tools, some advice, strategies that they can use.
Wow. I would say, just kind of going back to the framework of the book without giving the whole book away there, so many people send their kids off to college. Here, look at it this way. If I were to say to you, hey, Thor, I have got a business opportunity for you. It's going to cost you at least $100,000. I'm not entirely sure when you're going to get the return. I may need more money. This investment may go on and on for more years. You want to invest?
I'm sorry, you got the wrong number.
Right, exactly, right? You'd never go for that. But so often, parents today, I mean, you really, the state school is $25,000 a year, right? So we're talking $100,000 in. And even if you're not a parent who doesn't believe in paying for all of school, right? There's different schools of thoughts, which really is doesn't matter what it is. It's right for you. But whatever the investment is, it is an investment of your funds. And so often people send their kids off to school with no game plan. And then they're surprised when schooling goes on for 5 or 6 years. They've never checked in with their kid and said, great, I have an agreement with you. I'm going to make this investment at whatever level that is, and here's what I expect in return. Because that's certainly what you would do in any other business investment that you made. And I think we really have to think of it as just that. It's an investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment in our children, but it's an investment nonetheless.
Well, now this is great. You can critique me and see what I'm doing right and wrong. So what I did with my youngest, Chase, he's off at school right now. And the deal is he has to pay the money that he saved up through, his teen years working. He's got to pay for school. If he gets A's and B's, his mom and I will reimburse him. And nice. We have a written contract.
Nice. I love the written contract.
Because it's so funny. He kind of forgets things.
Right. Oh, sure. Exactly. Exactly. I think the other thing, too, is, I don't know how your contract is written. The other thing I would say is,
Is that a good strategy, by the way?
I think it's a good strategy.
Okay.
I think it's a good strategy.
We're just in the first semester, so I can't tell you how successful it's been.
I think it's the good strategy. It might not work for everybody. Everyone has to figure out what their course of action is. What I love about it is, one, you had some forethought. It wasn't like, well, I'll just send my kid off to school and pay for it with no discussion of what the expectations were. So that alone gives you kind of a check mark in the great idea category. That you have, a monetary kind of win, if you will, associated with it for him. We all operate, most people are bad at your money operated, right? Coin operated. And I think that's a great thing. The other thing is, I think the thing I'd like to hear more about perhaps, or I wonder if you've included this, is we want to make sure they're resourceful. And the truth of the matter is we can all make mistakes. We can all go off to school and, underestimate how something's going to present itself, how we're going to feel about something, whether it be an emotional crisis, whether it be a financial crisis, whether it be, hey, there was a party Friday night, I didn't think about that, how it was going to impact me, when I should have been up studying on Saturday morning. And so it's like, what are the things you've built in to say, you know what, son, you can make some mistakes because we're all human, right? And I think that's the thing that I would love to see in there too. Like how do you plan to deal with that if that should present itself?
Well, I'm a very compassionate person, as you know. And basically my answer to everything is pick yourself up and just rub some dirt in it. It'll be okay.
Right.
A typical male response.
Right. But it's a great response. I mean, my dad had a similar. In fact, in my book, I have a lot. I call it chief talk. So the things that my father, his nickname was the chief, or is the chief, and so the things that he would say is like, you got to, keep getting up, keep getting up. Anytime we confronted with the challenge, or we seemed to be defeated in the moment, they got to keep getting up. And so that was his way of saying, exactly the same thing, rub some dirt in it and keep going on. And when I look at my friends who had this similar advice, my girlfriend's father said exactly the same thing to her. And she's extremely successful because she's resilient and she's resourceful. And she knows if she has a bad day, it's just that, a bad day. It doesn't define who she is.
Yeah. And I have a daughter as well, Nicole.
Yeah.
And she's much more sensitive. So, I mean, with her, I've got to let her know that I'm here. There's a hand stretched out, and I'm here to help. I want you to be able to and do it yourself, but if you need some help, I'm here to assist. I'm definitely harder on the boy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but that's what I've been taking.
Yeah, I think it's normal, to have some of that. And perhaps your ex-wife has a different standard. She might be easier on your son than she is on your daughter. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's pretty common. But I think the point is, allowing for some kind of different sexes and whatever without getting into those rights and wrongs. I think that just is. And I would rather focus on I'm not going to do it for you, but I'm here to support you. Because I think that's the thing that's missing today. Like when you talked about the lawnmower plowing, you could go out there. I mean, I know your daughter. We've
Oh, that's
met
right.
on
Yeah.
one occasion. Yeah. And so, you could go out there and absolutely you have enough context that she could have a hugely successful business just by you opening up your Rolodex and calling everybody.
Yes.
But that would not really serve her. You would be cheating her of the satisfaction of successfully building something on her own.
Yeah.
She wouldn't learn as much from the process. She might have a little bit more money in her pocket a little faster, but you'd be robbing her of the satisfaction. And she would start to have the self-doubt of, gee, Dad doesn't think I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
And it's a very subtle and insidious, thing at work. But, so we want to avoid that. I mean, I can remember when I came out of college, my father was a huge executive at a Fortune 50 company. He had helped so many of my friends get jobs all through college and after college. He never once helped me to get a job. He didn't make a phone call. He didn't do anything. I mean, he supported me. He critiqued me if I was going on an interview, helped me to prepare for the interview. But he didn't. And it took me a little while to find a job. But you know what? It was a job I found on my own. And, I had the satisfaction and the pride in that. And too often we're robbing our children of the opportunity to feel that satisfaction and pride and building something on their own.
Yeah, one of my first jobs at 18, I was selling life insurance. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want a tough job,
right,
and you want to get your nose punched in a bunch, become a life insurance salesman at 18.
Yeah.
I was not a very successful one, but I tell you, it built character. Mm-hmm. And I would never exchange that for anything.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. One of a friend of mine's son calls me and says he's selling, what was that? I'm trying to think of the product that he was selling. Be that as it may. Oh, it's the knives. It's that company that sells the knives. I can't think of it right now. But he called me and he says, can I get an appointment with you to sell these knives? And I said, look, I'm happy to have the appointment, but I'm not going to buy anything. I've already bought this set of knives from somebody else's kid, right? And it's a very expensive set of knives. But he said, that's okay. I get paid essentially for setting appointments. Okay, great. because it allows him to come. He's got to set the appointment. He has to follow up. He has to come to my house. He came in and did his presentation. So that's an opportunity. Those are all things that he's going to use throughout his life. So it was great. And of course, Thor, the end of the story is I bought something. I just really couldn't let this kid. So my two stepdaughters both have lovely little, hostess sets that they'll be getting for Christmas. But in any event,
Nice.
it really was a great thing. And then, of course, because it was me, I gave him a bunch of feedback, right? I'm a salesperson for a long time. So I'm like, okay, great. Here's what here's what was great. And here's, what you might do, next time when you're doing this to make it even better. So
that's awesome. And as a bonus of this episode, everyone's going to get Allyson's contact information. So if you sell something, just contact her and she'll buy it. This interview is going to cost you $50,000.
Yeah, right.
Any other techniques or tools or anything, strategies that parents can use? What's working, what's not working?
Well, one of the things that I have in my book and that I work on with parents is checking in with kids on their belief systems. And so this kind of calls under the category of resourcefulness. A lot of times kids will say, oh, my teacher doesn't like me. So this is really more towards like high school kids, right? My teacher doesn't like me. Or I can't understand this work. Or, it's just too hard. Or I don't have friends, nobody likes, whatever those issues your teen is confronted with, all those are just belief systems. So, it's like we just step back and say, is this belief system serving you? So for an example, if your kid said, well, my teacher doesn't like me, how do you know they don't like you? Well, they always get mad at me when I come in class just a few minutes late. Well, what else could that mean, right? So I take them through an example of series of questions you can ask to essentially break up that belief system, just to point out it's just your belief. It doesn't mean it's true, right? So I'll take them through a series of questions. What else could it mean? Is there another reason your teacher might be disgruntled and you just happen to walk into that? Maybe, she's frustrated with something that happened in the previous class. Maybe you are late every day. Maybe this is just her time of day where she gets tired. There could be a lot of reasons why what you're describing as she doesn't like you, when that's not the truth at all. So first piece is let's get under the covers of understanding this is just a belief system. It doesn't make it true. And then the second piece is that empowering or disempowering? So empowering, does it help you to succeed in your goals, which is to do well in the class? And the answer is no, because if you think someone's against you, you're probably going to maybe not raise your hand as much. You're going to just come in with a bad attitude, might color how open you are to learning for the day. So a lot of things that could come up as a result, which I would call then disempowering, meaning that they're not serving you to get your outcome. So then we take on and we say, well, what might be more empowering instead? So what belief system? So, and I actually had a friend of my daughter's, I took through this exercise, and I said, you know what, let's just try on, whether it's true or not. What if you thought you were the teacher's pet? What if you thought your teacher enjoyed you in her classroom more than anybody else? What might you say? Might you ask for additional help? Would you raise your hand in class more often? Would you get to class a little bit earlier, right? And so those are the type of tips that I give in the book. And what happened with my daughter's friend is that she found, just changing her attitude, changing her belief that little bit, she started to get more out of the class. She found after a while when she smiled at the teacher smiled back at her. So it was all that built up, oh, I dread this class every day because the teacher doesn't like me. And she kind of went on with the frown on her face going in, to going in and being happy about it. And she knows that the teacher was happier too.
It's so funny that you say that. My son, if he listens to this episode, is going to be like, Dad, why you mention me all the time? But, it's interesting. When he was probably about 15, he was really struggling, and we were struggling with him, and things weren't going well for his parents or for himself. Mm-hmm. And I finally said, okay, why don't I just ask him questions like he was one of my clients? I'm like, isn't it so funny? It's like you're an expert in this area, and then when it comes to your kids, you're just like, oh man, I just dropped the ball. So I'm like, okay. I said, what do you need? What do you want? And what's preventing us from having an absolutely incredible relationship? And he said, well, Dad, I need you to be consistent. And of course, what did I say? Did I listen? No. What do you mean I'm not consistent? Of course I'm consistent. Right. And he goes, I want to be understood. Of course I understand you, blah, blah, And that didn't, work. And he goes, I want to be heard. I hear you all the time, Right. And I was like, oh, my goodness. And then it took a couple weeks, and I said, okay, he wants me to be consistent. Obviously, it doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what he thinks. Maybe I haven't been consistent, or at least in his mind I haven't been. So I need to address that. And I need to understand him. Now, that doesn't mean I have to agree with him. And we had to talk about that. I said, I do want to understand you. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree because I'm still your father, but I want to understand. And I said, I do want you to speak, and I do want to listen. And as soon as I started doing that, it started to change. And the last thing was he really craved significance. And in the beginning, I figured, okay, what's the best way to break him of his significance, addiction? Don't give it to him. That is really a bad strategy.
Yes, it is.
It's a really bad strategy. If your kids want significance, give it to them. They want certainty, give it to them.
Right.
Give it to them in a way that supports you and is in alignment with what you're trying to create the values. But
absolutely,
you got to give your kids what they need.
Actually, and on that point, one of the things that I'm a big preacher of, in terms of giving your kids certainty and significance, when you're together, put your phone down. That work email does not need to be answered. It's like we are so busy on our phones because we feel the demands of work and, we want to do well in our jobs. And, one would argue that's what keeps the lights on in the house and you want to take care of your kid. But what your kid needs more is your presence. And there's nothing more than your presence that will give your kid certainty and significance, right? Nothing more than that. And, I've posted on I have a group page on, creating independent young adults on Facebook. And, I shared an article about, when you go to the soccer match, I know you think, well, I can sit in the stands and I can just, get this work done too. I would argue you need to do either or. Either be there and be present because your kid's looking at you. That one moment they look at you, you're not looking at them on the field. You may as well not be there.
Yeah.
So pick one.
Yeah, and it's worse. If you're
it
not,
is worse.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's interesting because 2 years ago I made a shift in kind of my annual planning process. And I used to have family kind of lumped together into one category. Mm-hmm. And I moved both my kids into separate categories where I have a category for Chase. I have a category for Nicole. And then I have a category for my other extended family. Mm-hmm. But I want each of them to know that they are extremely important. And what I'm doing for one doesn't necessarily resonate with the other. So, and I'm getting better feedback.
Right.
So I'm focusing more on them individually.
And that's it. I love what you said. That's such a beautiful point to make because we're not all the same. And I know you're very familiar with Gary Chapman's work in the 5 love languages.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's really the same with our kids, right? So if you're, giving your intimate partner, gifts, but their love language says that time spent is what lights them up, it's like you're never going to win. Same thing with your kids. Your kids need different things from you. It's time spent. It's words of, affirmation, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you're giving the right thing.
Yeah.
I have 2 daughters and 2 stepdaughters, and my 2 daughters couldn't be more different. One is extremely identifies academically, and it's all about the straight A's and the, just academic prowess. And the other one's a great student too, but doesn't identify the same way. And one of the things I had to really learn early on was how do I support each kid on each kid's path, right? My older one, who knows, one day she'll be a Supreme Court justice. This is the kid. She's very focused, very driven that way. My other one, like I said, she wants to do well, but she's more artistic. She has other things that hold her interest. And so I really had to just step back and say, you know what? I have to love and support each of these kids the way they want. So, how can I support them, whether it be academically or whatever their other pursuits were, and finding programs and things that might interest them. Not beating up one, my older one because she can't put lipstick on and she looks crazy when she does, and not beating up my little one because she didn't have as many AP classes that her sister has. So they're really different. It's so important to understand your kids and make sure that they don't feel, especially the younger one, can feel like, well, I've got to be just like this one because she's succeeding and I want to succeed too. But they might not be, they're not driven the same way.
Every peak performer that has ever lived or will live does one thing extremely well. They know how to take their ideas and execute on them. Ideas and knowledge are not power, but the ability to execute on them, that is real power. If you consider yourself a peak performer and really want to take your game to the next level and truly master the science of execution, I would like to send you some information about our upcoming event, Business Execution Summit. Simply take your phone and text the word BE Summit, one word, to 41411. And I'll send you some additional information on how to master the most important skill you will ever acquire for your life or your business. That concludes part 1 of our interview with Allyson Ward. Please stay tuned later this week for part 2. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already done so, please head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Also, please share this with family, friends, coworkers, or anyone that could benefit from this information. To make it very easy to share these episodes, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode that you want to share, and you can post it to your timeline. You just might be helping one of your friends on Facebook by sharing it on your page. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. The email is info@thorconklin. While at the website, please sign up for our weekly newsletter with additional tricks, tips, tools, and psychology on how to be a peak performer. Remember, these episodes are anywhere between 6 and 35 minutes and are meant to be consumed during dot time doing other things. Until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.